Hare Krishna, dear devotees, welcome back to the daily readings of Srila Prabhupada's books. And we're starting today's session for the second time, and we're going to, through Divide, whose account we use to record these daily readings, through him we'll have what we just finished reading placed in the right place in the daily readings of Srila Prabhupada's books, with the label 431 intro. CC Ädi-lilä Adi 431 intro. And now we're going to continue, but I'm going to begin from where we started, just in case some of you may not be able to get that first part. So I'm going to go right into it because I made a little introduction in the intro to the first part of this reading. We're going to go back to text 31. Krishna is explaining how he's going to behave when he comes to the material world as Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and as Krishna. Rather as Krishna. He's talking about now he's come to the level of his relationship with the gopis. Pure attachment will unite us even at the expense of moral and religious duties, dharma. Destiny will sometimes bring us together and sometimes separate us. Purport. The gopis came out to meet Krishna in the dead of night when they heard the sound of his flute. Srila Rupa Goswami has accordingly composed a nice verse, see Ädi-lilä, chapter 5, verse 224, that describes the beautiful boy called Govinda, standing by the bank of the Yamuna with his flute to his lips in the shining moonlight. Those who want to enjoy life in the materialistic way of society, friendship, and love should not go to the Yamuna to see the form of Govinda. The sound of Lord Krishna's flute is so sweet that it has made the gopis forget all about their relationships with their kinsmen and flee to Krishna in the dead of night. By leaving home in that way, the gopis transgressed the Vedic regulations of household life. This indicates that when natural feelings of love for Krishna become fully manifest, a devotee can neglect conventional social rules and regulations. In the material world, we are situated in designated positions only. But pure devotional service begins when one is freed from all designations. When love for Krishna is awakened, the designated positions are overcome. The spontaneous attraction of Sri Krishna for his dearest parts and parcels generates an enthusiasm that obliges Sri Krishna and the gopis to meet together. To celebrate this transcendental enthusiasm, there is a need of a sentiment of separation between the lover and beloved. In the condition of material tribulation, no one wants the pangs of separation. But in the transcendental form, the very same separation, being absolute in its nature, strengthens the ties of love and enhances the desire of the lover and beloved to meet. The period of separation, evaluated transcendentally, is more relishable than the actual meeting, which lacks the feelings of increasing anticipation because the lover and beloved are both present. Text 32. I shall taste the essence of all these rasas, and in this way I shall favor all the devotees. 33. Then, by hearing about the pure love of the residents of Braja, devotees will worship me on the path of spontaneous love, abandoning all rituals of religiosity and fruitive activity. Purport. Many realized souls, such as Raghunath Das Goswami and King Kulashekar, have recommended with great emphasis that one develop this spontaneous love of Godhead, even at the risk of transgressing all the traditional codes of morality and religiosity. Sri Raghunath Das Goswami, one of the 6 Goswamis of Vrindavan, has written in his prayers called the Manak Shiksha that one should simply worship Radha and Krishna with all attention. Nadharmam nadharmam shrutigana niruktam kila kuru. One should not be much interested in performing Vedic rituals or simply following rules and regulations. King Kulashekar has written similarly in his book Mukunda Mala Stotra 5. Nashta dharme na vasunichaye naiva kamo pavoge yad bhavyam tad babatu bhagavan purva karmanurupam etat pratyam mama mahumatam janma janmantare pi twat padam bo ruha yoga gita nischala bhaktirastu. I have no attraction for performing religious rituals or holding any earthly kingdom. I do not care for sense enjoyments. Let them appear and disappear in accordance with my previous deeds. My only desire is to be fixed in devotional service to the lotus feet of the Lord, even though I may continue to take birth here, life after life. Text 34. Anugrahaya bhaktanam manusham deham ashritaha bhajate tadrishi krida yakshutva tatpado bhavet. Krishna manifests his eternal human-like form and performs his pastimes to show mercy to the devotees. Having heard such pastimes, one should engage in service to him. Purport. This text is from Srimad Bhagavatam 10:33-36. The Supreme Personality of Godhead has innumerable expansions of his transcendental form, who eternally exist in the spiritual world. This material world is only a perverted reflection of the spiritual world, where everything is manifested without inebriety. There, everything is in its original existence, free from the domination of time. Time cannot deteriorate or interfere with the conditions in the spiritual world, where different manifestations of the Supreme Personality of Godhead are the recipients of the worship of different living entities in their constitutional spiritual positions. In the spiritual world, all existence is unadulterated goodness. The goodness found in the material world is contaminated by the modes of passion and ignorance. The saying that the human form of life is the best position for devotional service has its special significance because only in this form can a living entity revive his eternal relationship with the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The human form is considered the highest state in the cycle of the species of life in the material world. If one takes advantage of this highest kind of material form, one can regain his position of devotional service to the Lord. Incarnations of the Supreme Personality of Godhead appear in all the species of life, although this is inconceivable to the human brain. The Lord's pastimes are differentiated according to the appreciating capacity of the different types of bodies of the living entities. The Supreme Lord bestows the most merciful benediction upon human society when he appears in his human form. It is then that humanity gets the opportunity to engage in different kinds of eternal service to the Lord. Special, natural appreciation of the descriptions of a particular pastime of Godhead indicates the constitutional position of a living entity. Adoration, servitorship, friendship, parental affection, and conjugal love are the 5 primary relationships with Krishna. The highest perfectional stage of the conjugal relationship, enriched by many sentiments, gives the maximum relishable mellow to the devotee. The Lord appears in different incarnations as a fish, tortoise, and boar, as Parashuram, Lord Rama, Buddha, and so on, to reciprocate the different appreciations of living entities in different stages of evolution. The conjugal relationship of amorous love, called Parakya Rasa, is the unparalleled perfection of love exhibited by Lord Krishna and his devotees. A class of so-called devotees, known as sahajas, try to imitate the Lord's pastimes, although they have no understanding of the amorous love in its expansions of pleasure potency. Their superficial imitation can create havoc on the path for the advancement of one's spiritual relationship with the Lord. Material sexual indulgence can never be equal to spiritual love, which is in unadulterated goodness. The activities of the sahajas simply lower one deeper into the material contamination of the senses and mind. Krishna's transcendental pastimes display eternal servitorship to Adhokshaja, the Supreme Lord, who is beyond all conception through material senses. Materialistic conditioned souls do not understand the transcendental exchanges of love, but they like to indulge in sense gratification in the name of devotional service. The activities of the Supreme Lord can never be understood by irresponsible persons who think the pastimes of Radha and Krishna to be ordinary affairs. The rasa dance is arranged by Krishna's internal potency, Yogamaya, and it is beyond the grasp of the materially affected person. Trying to throw mud into transcendence with their perversity, the sahajas misinterpret the sayings tat parat vena nirmalam and tat pado bhavet. By misinterpreting tadrishi kridaha, they want to indulge in sex while pretending to imitate Lord Krishna. But one must actually understand the imports of the words through the intelligence of the authorized Goswamis. Srila Narottam Das Thakur, in his prayers to the Goswamis, has explained his inability to understand such spiritual affairs. Rupa Raghunatha Pade Hayibe Akuti Kabe Homa Bujhaba Kabe Hama Bujhaba Sayugala Pariti. When I shall be eager to understand the literature given by the Goswamis, then I shall be able to understand the transcendental loving affairs of Radha and Krishna. In other words, unless one is trained under the disciplic succession of the Goswamis, one cannot understand Radha and Krishna. The conditioned souls are naturally averse to understanding the spiritual existence of the Lord. And if they try to know the transcendental nature of the Lord's pastimes while remaining absorbed in materialism, they are sure to blunder like the sahajas. Text 35. Here, the use of the verb bhavet, which is in the imperative mood, tells us that this certainly must be done. Non-compliance would be abandonment of duty. Purport. This imperative is applicable to pure devotees. Neophytes will be able to understand these affairs only after being elevated by regulated devotional service under the expert guidance of the spiritual master. Then they too will be competent to hear of the loving affairs of Radha and Krishna. As long as one is in material conditioned life, strict discipline is required in the matter of moral and immoral activities. The absolute world is transcendental and free from such distinctions because there is inebriety. Because there, inebriety is not possible. But in this material world, a sexual appetite necessitates distinction between moral and immoral conduct. There are no sexual activities in the spiritual world. The transactions between lover and beloved in the spiritual world are pure, transcendental love and unadulterated bliss. One who has not been attracted by the transcendental beauty of rasa will certainly be dragged down into material attraction. Thus, to act in material contamination and to progress to the darkest region of hellish life. But by understanding the conjugal love of Radha and Krishna, one is freed from the grip of attraction to material so-called love between man and woman. Similarly, one who understands the pure parental love of Nanda and Yashoda for Krishna will be saved from being dragged into material parental affection. If one accepts Krishna as the supreme friend, the attraction of material friendship will be finished for him, and he will not be dismayed by so-called friendship with mundane wranglers. If he is attracted by servitorship to Krishna, he will no longer have to serve the material body in the degraded status of material existence with the false hope of becoming master in the future. Similarly, one who sees the greatness of Krishna in neutrality will certainly never again seek the so-called relief of impersonalist or voidist philosophy. If one is not attracted by the transcendental nature of Krishna, one is sure to be attracted to material enjoyment, thus to become implicated in the clinging network of virtuous and sinful activities, and to continue material existence by transmigrating from one material body to another. Only in Krishna consciousness can one achieve the highest perfection of life. Srila Prabhupada ki Jai. Text 36 and 37. Just as these desires are the fundamental reason for Krishna's appearance, whereas destroying the demons is only an incidental necessity, so for Sri Krishna Chaitanya, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, promulgating the Dharma of the age is incidental. 38. When the Lord desired to appear for another reason, the time for promulgating the religion of the age also arose. Thus, with two intentions, the Lord appeared with his devotees and tasted the nectar of prema with the congregational chanting of the holy name. Text 40. Thus he spread kirtan even among the untouchables. He wove a wreath of the holy name and prema with which he garlanded the entire material world. 41. In this way, assuming the sentiment of a devotee, he preached devotional service while practicing it himself. Purport. When Rupa Goswami met Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu at Prayag, Allahabad, he offered his respectful obeisances by submitting that Lord Chaitanya was more magnanimous than any other avatar of Krishna. because he was distributing love of Krishna. His mission was to enhance love of Godhead. In the human form of life, the highest achievement is to attain the platform of love of Godhead. Lord Chaitanya did not invent a system of religion, as people sometimes assume. Religious systems are meant to show the existence of God, who was then generally approached as the cosmic order supplier. But Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's transcendental mission is to distribute love of Godhead to everyone. Anyone who accepts God as the Supreme can take to the process of chanting Hare Krishna and become a lover of God. Therefore, Lord Chaitanya is the most magnanimous. This magnificent broadcasting of devotional service is possible only for Krishna himself. Therefore, Lord Chaitanya is Krishna. In the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna has taught the philosophy of surrender to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. One who is surrendered to the Supreme can make further progress by learning to love Him. Therefore, the Krishna consciousness movement propagated by Lord Chaitanya is especially meant for those who are cognizant of the presence of the Supreme Godhead, the ultimate controller of everything. His mission is to teach people how to dovetail themselves into engagements of transcendental loving service. He is Krishna, teaching his own service from the position of a devotee. The Lord's acceptance of the role of a devotee in the eternal form of Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is another of the Lord's wonderful features. A conditioned soul cannot reach the absolute personality of Godhead by his imperfect endeavor, and therefore it is wonderful that Lord Sri Krishna, in the form of Lord Gauranga, has made it easy for everyone to approach him. Sarup Damodar Goswami has described Lord Chaitanya as Krishna himself with the attitude of Radharani, or a combination of Radha and Krishna. The intention of Lord Chaitanya is to taste Krishna's sweetness in transcendental love. He does not care to think of himself as Krishna because he wants the position of Radharani. We should remember this. A class of so-called devotees called the Nadiya Nagaris or Gora Nagaris pretend that they have the sentiment of gopis toward Lord Chaitanya, but they do not realize that he placed himself not as the enjoyer, Krishna, but as the enjoyed, the devotee of Krishna. The concoctions of unauthorized persons pretending to be bona fide have not been accepted by Lord Chaitanya. Presentations such as those of the Gora Nagaris are only disturbances to the sincere execution of the mission of Lord Chaitanya. Lord Chaitanya is undoubtedly Krishna himself, and he is always non-different from Srimati Radharani. But the emotion technically called Vipralamba Bhava, in which the Lord adopted for confidential reasons, should not be disturbed in the name of service. A mundaner should not unnecessarily intrude into affairs of transcendence and thereby displease the Lord. One must always be on guard against this sort of devotional anomaly. A devotee is not meant to create disturbances to Krishna. As Srila Rupa Goswami has explained, devotional service is anukulyena, or favorable to Krishna. Acting unfavorably toward Krishna is not devotion. Kamsa was the enemy of Krishna. He always thought of Krishna, but he thought of him as an enemy. One should always avoid such unfavorable so-called service. Lord Chaitanya has accepted the role of Radharani, and we should support that position, as Swarup Damodar did in the Gambhira, the room where Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu stayed in Puri. He always reminded Lord Chaitanya of Radha's feelings of separation, as they are described in Srimad Bhagavatam, and Lord Chaitanya appreciated his assistance. But the Gauranagaris, who placed Lord Chaitanya in the position of the enjoyer and themselves as his enjoyed, are not approved by Lord Chaitanya or by Lord Chaitanya's followers. Instead of being blessed, the foolish imitators are left completely apart. Their concoctions are against the principles of Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. The doctrine of transcendental enjoyment by Krishna cannot be mixed up with the doctrine of transcendental feeling of separation from Krishna in the role of Radharani. Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. We'll discuss all this later. Text 42. 4 kinds of devotees are the receptacles of the 4 kinds of mellows in love of God, namely servitude, friendship, parental affection, and conjugal love. 43. Each kind of devotee feels that his sentiment is the most excellent, and thus in that mood he tastes great happiness with Lord Krishna. 44. But if we compare the sentiments in an impartial mood, we find that the conjugal sentiment is superior to all others in sweetness. Purport. No one is higher or lower than anyone else in the transcendental relationships with the Lord. I'll repeat that. No one is higher or lower than anyone else in transcendental relationships with the Lord. For in the absolute realm, everything is equal. But although these relationships are absolute, there are also transcendental differences between them. Thus, the transcendental relationship of conjugal love is considered the highest perfection. Text 45. Increasing love is experienced in various tastes, one above another. But that love which has the highest taste is in the gradual succession of desire manifests itself in the form of conjugal love. Purport. This is a verse from Srila Rupa Goswami's Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, 2.5.38. Text 46. Therefore, I call it Madhura Rasa. It has 2 further divisions, namely wedded and unwedded love. 47. There's a great increase of mellow in the unwedded conjugal mood. Such love is found nowhere but in Braja. Text 48. This mood is unbounded in the damsels of Braja, but among them it finds its perfection in Sri Radha. Text 49. Her pure, mature love surpasses that of all others. Her love is the cause of Lord Krishna's tasting the sweetness of the conjugal relationship. Text 50. Therefore Lord Gauranga, who is Sri Hari himself, accepted the sentiments of Radha and thus fulfilled his own desires. Purport. Of the 4 kinds of reciprocation of loving service, Dasya, Sakya, Vatsalya, and Madhurya, Madhurya is considered the fullest. But the conjugal relationship is further divided into 2 varieties, namely Swakiya and Parakiya. Swakiya is the relationship with Krishna as a formerly married husband, and Parakiya is the relationship with Krishna as a paramour. Expert analysts have described that the transcendental ecstasy of the Parakiya mellow is better because it is more enthusiastic. This phase of conjugal love is found in those who have surrendered to the Lord in intense love knowing well that such illicit love with a paramour is not morally approved in society. The risks involved in such love of Godhead make this emotion superior to the relationship in which such risk is not involved. The validity of such risk, however, is possible only in the transcendental realm. Swakiya and Parakiya conjugal love of Godhead have no existence in the material world. I will repeat that, please. Swakiya and Parakiya conjugal love of Godhead have no existence in the material world. And Parakiya is not exhibited anywhere in Vaikuntha, but only in the portion of Goloka Vrindavan known as Braja. Some devotees think that Krishna is eternally the enjoyer in Goloka Vrindavan, but only sometimes comes to the platform of Braja to enjoy Parakiya Rasa. The 6 Goswamis of Vrindavan, however, have explained that Krishna's pastimes in Braja are eternal, like his other activities in Goloka Vrindavan. Braja is a confidential part of Goloka Vrindavan. Krishna exhibited his Braja pastimes on the surface of this world, and similar pastimes are eternally exhibited in Braja in Goloka Vrindavan, where Parakiya Rasa is ever existent. In the 3rd chapter of this epic, Srila Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami has explicitly accepted the fact that Krishna appears in this material world at the end of the Dwapara age of the 28th Chatra Yuga of Vaivasvata Madhu, and brings with him his Brajadam, which is the eternal abode of his highest pastimes. As the Lord appears by his own internal potency, so he also brings all his paraphernalia by the same internal potency, without extraneous help. It is further stated here in the Caitanya-caritämrta that the Parakiya sentiment exists only in that transcendental realm and nowhere else. This highest form of ecstasy can exist only in the most confidential part of the transcendental world. But by the causeless mercy of the Lord, we can have a peep into that invisible Braja. The transcendental mellow relished by the gopis in Braja is super excellently featured in Srimati Radharani. Mature assimilation of the transcendental humor of conjugal love is represented by Srimati Radharani, whose feelings are incomprehensible even to the Lord himself. The intensity of her loving service is the highest form of ecstasy. No one can surpass Srimati Radharani in relishing the qualities of the Lord through this supreme transcendental mellow. Therefore the Lord himself agreed to assume the position of Radharani in the form of Lord Sri Gauranga. He then relished the highest position of Parakiya Rasa as exhibited in the transcendental abode of Braja. Text 51. Lord Chaitanya is the shelter of the demigods, the goal of the Upanishads, the be-all and end-all of the great sages, the beautiful shelter of his devotees, and the essence of the love of the lotus-eyed gopis. Will he again be the object of my vision? Apadam kasyapi pranayayi jana vrindasya skutuki rasastomam hridva maduram upabhoktum kamapiyaha rucham swam avavre dyutim ihadatiyam prakatayan sadevas chaitanya-caritämrta atitarang na kripatayu. Kripayatu. Lord Krishna desired to taste the limitless nectarian mellows of the love of one of his Lord Krishna desired to taste the limitless nectarian mellows of the love of one of his multitude of loving damsels, Sri Radha. And so he has assumed the form of Lord Chaitanya. He has tasted that love while hiding his own dark complexion with her effulgent yellow color. May that Lord Chaitanya confer upon us his grace. Purport, text 51 and 52, respectively, Pratama are respectively Pratama Sri Caitanya-caritämrta 2 and Dvitiya Sri Caitanya-caritämrta 3 from the Stavamala of Srila Rupa Goswami. Text 53. To accept ecstatic love is the main reason he appeared and re-established the religious system for this age. I shall now explain that reason. Everyone, please listen tomorrow night. We'll stop here. Now, I want to remind everyone that we just did 2 readings. I don't know how long it will take us to post the first one, but the first one will be entitled CC Adi 3:31 Intro. And what we just read will be labeled Adi CC 31. Okay, so this was very rich, very deep, very thick explanation of what the highest or the most intimate form of love of Krishna is. Okay, if anyone has any reflections or any points that came out they want to discuss further or inquire about, please be my guest. Hare Krishna. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu ki jai. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Sri Caitanya-caritämrta ki jai.
Something from Daityari Haridas.
Daitya Hari Hari.
He says, Hari Bol Maharaj. Just to clarify my question regarding monitoring our strictness in practicing devotional service yesterday and how we're affecting our relationship with Krishna, to which you gave a very good answer. I wasn't really necessarily referring to following the 4 regulative principles, rising early and attending Mangal Arti or anything like that. I was referring to the extra austerities new devotees sometimes wind themselves up with, like not being in touch with how to regulate our activities properly.
Like not being in touch with how to regulate our activities properly? I don't understand what that means. Anyway, keep going. Maybe it'll be clear when he finishes.
Like not being in touch with how to regulate our activities properly in a favorable way, out of pride, and not being in tune with how we as individuals can get the most out of ourselves, with how much sleep one needs to function properly, or not eating enough.
Oh, I see.
Imitating austerities beyond our capacity, and considering ourselves more advanced than we actually are, or being so intense in isolated areas, like being so overly obsessed with cleanliness that we don't get enough time to read, or being pujari clean even in impractical circumstances, where it might affect our capacity to do something urgent with regards to preaching. Just different things like that. How we might distract ourselves from ourselves by becoming overly obsessed with things that might be minor virtues, but actually become burdens and impediments to progressive devotional service.
Well, go ahead.
Sorry for not articulating my question in the best way yesterday. I hope what I'm saying makes sense.
Yeah, it makes sense. Well, one thing you can do is not get too much involved in all these details of what's wrong with others, and pay attention to yourself. If you're noticing all these different ways that devotees, make mistakes or over-endeavor or overemphasize details of austerity that could put us into a artificial situation and cause them to either fall down from spiritual life. I mean, Rupa Goswami says niyamagraha. Niyamagraha is a very important principle, and all of the things that you mentioned fit into this category. Niyamagraha means that there are two sides to fall down in regard to regulated principles. One of them is to perform the regulated principles, but without trying to advance towards love for Krishna. And the other one is to neglect the regulated principles. So I think Rupa Goswami has also coined a phrase, and it's from a Bhagavatam verse. I don't remember the Sanskrit offhand. Forgive me for that. I should know it, but I don't remember. There's two basic regulated principles. One is to always remember Krishna, and the other is to never forget him. That may seem like the same, but actually they're two different things. And all the other regulated principles that you're talking about are servants of those two principles. Always remember Krishna and never forget Krishna. So how you can measure whether all those details that you're talking about, and it's you have to be very careful how you do this, because some devotees have more capacity than you, and when you see it, you may think they're overdoing it, but they might be just doing what is natural for them. But the main thing is to remember Krishna in love and never forget him. Therefore Krishna says, Man mana bhava mad bhakto madhyaji mam namaskuru. Always remember me. Become my devotee. Offer your homage unto me. Offer obeisances. So the point you're making is that if things are done in the wrong consciousness, or if they're done in an immature way, then they can cause fall down. But to neglect them, according to our capacity, is also cause for fall down. Like, I'll give you an example. Krishna says, if one eats too much or eats too little, or if one sleeps too much or one sleeps too little, then he cannot perform yoga, of which bhakti yoga is the essence. So that means what is enough for each of us is different. But still, there's a line there where we don't want to go outside too much and too little, especially too much. If you go more than 8 hours or something like that, then you'll be influenced by ignorance and it will drag you down. If you go less than 5, and are not qualified to do that, then every time you sit down to open a book to read, you'll fall asleep. Or when you start to chant your rounds, you'll fall asleep, or whatever. So this is the gauge, The gauge is how awake you are, how alert you are in your service and in the hearing and chanting of the Lord's holy name and his holy pastimes. The taste, how much taste. When you have taste, you cannot fall asleep during your rounds. You cannot fall asleep during the hearing of Krishna's pastimes. So if you're doing these things and you're not able to hear and chant, then you're probably taking too much of it or too little of it. But I just detect in your question, it was a little, today it was quite precise and quite detailed as the kinds of things that you're talking about. And I think it's safer for us as individuals not to look so critically at others, to be tolerant of others, but rather to be critical of ourselves to make sure that we don't do those things. And not to think ourselves superior if we do those things and we see others are not doing them so carefully or so well or so perfectly. Because another mystical aspect or quality of advancement in devotional service is that as you advance, you consider yourself less advanced. Now that seems odd. I'm advancing and I'm feeling I'm less advanced. But that's the actual reality. And the model of that devotee is Srimati Radharani herself. When you hear the Srimad Bhagavatam, when Radharani speaks to the trees and to the birds and to the deer and to the clouds and to the river Yamuna and all other living beings practically, she is glorifying them as being better devotees than her. You know, she glorifies the deer because they can approach, you know, Krishna with their husbands, and she can't. So she's saying, oh, you're more fortunate than me. You're better devotees than I am. And like that, she thinks that every other living being is a devotee except for her. That's how she thinks. But that love is so deep and so impenetrable and not imitatable. If you imitate these things, which is another aspect of your question, if you imitate the Goswamis by trying to sleep, 1 hour, 1.5 hours, or sometimes less if you're in ecstasy, you'll fall flat on your face. I've seen it myself. I won't go into details. Therefore, the best thing to do is to stay regulated, but at the same time, hear and chant properly and sufficiently so that you can continue to assimilate these scriptures and go forward yourself in loving devotional service. Don't be fault finder. Hare Krishna.
Something from Rati Manjari.
Rati Manjari. Don't say it too soft because nobody's liable to hear.
Okay. She says, Dear Guru Maharaj, please accept my humble
Hare Krishna, Rati.
Tonight I have 2 appreciations. I liked the vision evoked by verse 40. Quote, thus he spreads kirtan even among the untouchables. He wove a wreath of the holy name in prema with which he garlanded the entire material world.
There you go.
Unquote.
Wonderful.
And listening to the elevated and
connoisseur, that's connoisseur hearing. Go ahead.
And listening to the elevated and refined verses and purports of tonight's reading made me appreciate Srila Prabhupada's mastery on yet another level.
Yes.
How one person could hold all these capacities to endlessly be willing to preach the basics of Krishna consciousness to ignorant people, and also to translate and write purports on this exalted spiritual level as we heard tonight.
Yes.
What a wonderful and spiritually rich personality is Srila Prabhupada.
Yes. And there's a class of so-called transcendentalists who left him and say that he was just teaching the basics and he didn't have wasn't teaching pure bhakti. Anybody who thinks that has got to have his head, in the clouds or something. You have to be honest. You have to be sincere and honest and true, and to hear, and free from envy. And later on, when we read the poetic translations of Krishna's, of Lord Chaitanya's reveries, there's no one that can translate this like Prabhupada. And I might add that the editors who edited his English, because he did have editors editing his English, were so expert. We'll read about these things later on. Proof of the pudding is in the eating. Thank you, Rati.
Daitya Haridas.
Daitya Hari Hari.
He says, thank you very much. Perfect answer. That was exactly what I needed to hear.
Thank you so much. It's my pleasure, and I thank you because you were engaging me in pure devotional service. Hare Krishna. That's it for tonight? Seems like it. Okay, I'm not sure how many of you are out there now, because there was a mistake in the beginning, and my trusty techie over here, Abaya, he's doing so much service. If you knew what he was doing to take care of all of us and still go out every day and do some books and preach, it's just superhuman what he's doing. So, he made a little mistake because he was hurrying to try to get us online on time. So anyway, once again, to remind you that this portion, or today's reading, is in two parts. And the first part will not be posted right in the beginning, because we have to go to Dividi, who owns this Facebook page, and who can actually make this transfer what we recorded on the wrong place and put it in the right place. But eventually, sometime probably by tomorrow, you'll have two. Ädi-lilä 31, Ädi-lilä 131, Ädi 131 intro, and Ädi 131. So you can listen to them together, and they will give the whole picture. Because I did do, like I usually do, a little introduction, but that was on only the first one, in the intro. Okay? Thank you so much. This was a really wonderful reading. Like Rati was saying, like Rati Manjari was saying, that Prabhupada's ability to poetically describe the most elevated levels of devotional service, and at the same time be situated with his feet on the ground in the basics, and teach us the basics, so that we can actually come to the level of being able to properly relish these things without making fools out of ourselves or imitating, is, yes, transcendentally masterful. Transcendentally masterful. Therefore, he is the supreme spiritual master for all of us, our founder Acharya. And he was able to spread Krishna consciousness all over the world. And because of this, he is the dearmost servant of Lord Chaitanya. And if you serve him and help spread Krishna consciousness and preach the basics of Bhagavad Gita, as Lord Chaitanya did, Ädi-lilä is 17 chapters. Madhya-lilā is very long. It's 25 chapters, but it's like, I don't know how many volumes out of 9 it must be. 2, 4, 5. 5 volumes out of 9. And that's his preaching mission. He doesn't go to the point where he's always trying to relish the topmost nectar before he preaches thoroughly and delivers some of the most elevated people in India, and he left the rest of it to our dear Srila Prabhupada. So we are so lucky to be with him. He is actually a world acharya. Sri Caitanya-caritämrta ki jai. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Samaveta Bhakta Brinda ki jai. See you all tomorrow night, same time, same place, here in the haven of Hive. Hare Krishna. See you tomorrow.